Well, hello. The name of our story today is called Nora's Ark. I know at first you think it says Noah's Ark, but it's Nora's Ark. So I want you to think, why would the author, Natalie Kinsey-Warnock, um, write a book called Nora's Ark? What does this have to do with maybe the same kind of storyline as Noah's Ark? It's kind of a similarity, a text-to-text connection should be made between the two stories. So I would hope and I would challenge you to try to find that connection between the two storylines. Our illustrator, or the person that drew the pictures for us, is called Emily Arnold McCauley. Another thing I want to share with you before we get started is information about the genre called historical fiction. My question to you is, what is historical fiction? Do you know? Has your teacher taught you that before? Well, think about what you think it is, and then I'll go over it with you, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about what historical fiction is. Again, it is a type of genre. If I take the word historical off, it leaves the word fiction. And as you know, fiction is a made-up story. It's something that didn't happen in real life, correct? But when we add the word historical fiction together, historical and the fiction part, now what we've got is a story that takes place at some point in history. So there is a connection between the story and something that did take place actually in history. But this story is a made-up story. So the characters in our story, they are what's called fictitious, or they're just pretend characters, but the time that the story was written is a true event. And so you're going to find out something kind of scary that happened in history and how this family survived. And think about, how would you survive in a similar situation? So what we're going to be really focusing on today, amongst all the other things that I just shared with you, is we're trying to figure out what is the theme in the story called Nora's Ark. But before we can answer the question of what is the theme in this story, we need to understand what the theme is. And I did share this with you once before. The theme is the central message. It's what the author wants you to learn from the story. It's a broad idea about life. Okay, so it's something important that the author is trying to teach you. It's based off of the author's opinion too, the way that she presents the facts in her story. And so she does have a purpose, or in this case it's a she, but sometimes it's a he. The authors do have a purpose when they write, and when it's fictional, as we know, it is to entertain us. But when you have a theme with a story, it's more than just entertainment. They actually have a purpose too. They want you to learn something from their story. So let's go ahead and jump into our story called Nora's Ark and figure out what the hidden message is for us. Today, we'll be using this fantastic graphic organizer. It's a type of a sequence chart, which you've used before to find the main idea and the supporting details. So it's going to help us find the theme in our story. So we're going to use text evidence to support what we think the theme is. And the author does come out and actually tells you the theme too. But again, the details that we find in our story, we're going to write those down, and then that will justify, or that will be the proof that our theme is correct. So let's go ahead and start with the beginning of our story, what it is, who our main characters are, and what we need to know that's relevant about their personalities that adds to our story. So I'm going to go ahead and read this beginning paragraph. It says, "When I was born, Grandma said I was so small I looked like a little bird. That's why I was named Wren. Grandma may look small too, but she's made of granite, and she says I'm rough, just like she is. Good thing, or we would never have survived the 1927 flood." As you can see, I tried to create a cool character voice that would be similar to someone living in the Vermont area that was kind of up in the rural country area. And so it's fun as you develop your fluency skills, you can take it to the next level and use what's called prosody. That's when you're checking punctuation, you're you're creating character voices, and that's when reading becomes really fun. So I would encourage you to also practice your prosody as you're reading text at home. Okay, so now something important about this text is we're trying to figure out, well, we have Wren, who was named after a little bird, and we have Grandma as a main character, so these are definitely our main characters. But the author goes in and tells us some very important facts about both Wren and Grandma, something about their character traits, what makes them unique from the other characters in the story. And as you can see, the author says Grandma may look small, so picture a small little grandma, but she's made of granite. Now, in order to really understand what this grandma is like, we need to understand what granite is like. And so figurative language is the author is wanting us to dig deeper and understand what grandma's like by our understanding of what granite is. And so it's a little bit of like metaphorical language, which is a type of figurative language. So granite is one of the hardest substances in the world. The only material harder than granite is a diamond. Granite won't crumble or break over time. So key ingredient right here to what our main characters are like, we know that both Wren and Grandma are determined individuals that don't break or fall apart when the going gets rough. So let's see how true this first paragraph description of our main characters, if it holds true throughout the whole story. Okay, well, let's begin.